Hello world, welcome to the, 240th Climate Change Emergency Protest here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. It is June 28th, 2023. I'm out here on the battlefield. Down the ways is the Pennsylvania Monument and several other monuments here. It's quite, I think it's the largest outdoor art exhibition in the world if you consider military art. So right now we're suffering from the effects again of the wildfire smoke from Canada, which is some 3,000 miles away, 4,000 miles away, and it's coming all the way down here. So the wind is kicking up, of course, when I'm doing my broadcast. So I'm going to try to stay in the shadow of this monument, the wind shadow, so that I can do the broadcast and not have it whipping through the microphone. And the camera falling over, hopefully it won't happen. So it's been quite amazing with the idea of all this smoke coming down. So next, this is number 240. This is June 28th, 2023. Next week will be number 241. That'll be on July 7th, 2023. Right now, the air is listed as unhealthy. It's 113 parts, on the AQI index. Probably by the end of the week, it'll be at 170 or so. I mean, my throat, I can feel it in my throat right now. It's ridiculous. So it's probably higher than 113 because it wasn't this smoky earlier. So carbon dioxide, this stuff, and also what we're emitting. So this is from the wildfires in Canada. Will stay in the atmosphere for dozens, if not hundreds of years, if not thousands of years. There's a 20-year delay between carbon dioxide and temperatures catching up. So right now we're living basically in the year 2003, where carbon dioxide was at 375 parts per million, not 424 as now. 2023, as of now, carbon dioxide is in between 424 or 421. It'll probably be 421 on average when we're done by the end of the year. So we're in a 20-year delay between carbon dioxide and temperature catching up. So we're in for a world of hurt. So it's not a good situation. Now, right now, the El Nino is starting up around the world. That's the venting off of heat from the oceans. They can't hold anymore. It's going to let loose. The scary part is it could turn into an El Padre in my mind, where the El Nino does not leave and the oceans keep venting off heat and also carbon dioxide and also oxygen, because warmer water holds less gases, and that could add even more carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, because the oceans have been saving us. 90% of all the carbon dioxide emitted has been going into the oceans. If that ever re-emits it back in the atmosphere, we're going to pay hell for that. So you got the El Nino, and then you have the solar maximum. The sun right now is achieving its solar maximum with sunspots and flares and everything else. The grid's in trouble, the electrical grid as well as the internet, and that could cause havoc if there's a flare. As I said about the high carbon dioxide, methane's at its highest point, which is an extremely potent greenhouse gas, as is nitrous oxide. You have the F gases, fluorocarbon, whatever they are, HFCs, as opposed to CFCs, which were in the 1970s. The F gases, which is related, but they're more ozone friendly, but it's an extremely dangerous greenhouse gas. That's for refrigerants, foam building, aerosol propellants, fire extinguisher suppression, and solvents. So instead of depleting the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, we're going the opposite direction right now. Nuclear facilities, they rely on uranium 235 and 238. Half-life of uranium 235 is 700 million years, meaning in 700 million years, half of the uranium is still radioactive. Uranium 238, 4.5 billion years is the half-life, so forget it. My point of this is that if we're going to build these nuclear facilities that some knuckleheads keep proposing, they're going to stay radioactive forever and ever and ever and ever. And you got to deal with that forever and ever. For example, cuneiform, which we cannot read, was only 3,100 years ago, up to 2,000 years ago, 2,600 years ago. So we can't even read it. It's a bunch of slashes and all. So how would we leave messages for the future? How to deal with this nuclear waste that we've created. Gasoline, 1 gallon of gas weighs 6.3 pounds, but what it does is when you burn it weighs up to 20 pounds in the atmosphere once burned. It combines with carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So it goes from carbon to carbon dioxide, basically, and it increases in weight by 3 times. Let's see here also. Fossil fuels, for example, if fossil fuels were listed as coal, just strictly coal, okay? it would the amount of fossil fuels we're burning per year would be equal to the National Mall down there where the Capitol of the United States is, all the way to the Lincoln Memorial pile of coal, as wide as the mall. So that's 483, I'm sorry, 170 meters wide, and as high as the Washington Monument, which is, let's see, that's 170 meters high, and the mall is 483 meters wide. So you are long. You would have a pile of coal that's 10 times higher than that just for 1 gigaton. Okay, so as high as the whole mall, 10 times higher than that would be 1 gigaton. Well, we're emitting as a world 37 gigatons per year. So it's a huge amount. It's 37 times higher than the Washington, I'm sorry, 10 times higher than the Washington Monument, times another 37. So 370 times higher than the Washington Monument is how much coal, essentially fossil fuels, that we're burning every year. It's an insane amount, and the idea of just pulling it out of the atmosphere with technology won't happen. This battlefield is an example where they tore down all the trees so that they can have a view of the battlefield and what happened. I understand that, but right now we're in a survival situation. We should be planting trees all through here. This should be the Gettysburg National Forest, not the Gettysburg National Military Park. And this is a matter of survival, and it makes everyone unhappy around here for me to suggest such a thing. But it is logic, and it would hold up as far as showing the benefits of it. But there's no thought process. There's no planning ahead. This town here, Gettysburg, half mile to my north here, is in big trouble. They don't even know what's coming, the potentialities such as what's happening around the country right now. And this will come here eventually. We will have heat waves. We will have fires. We will have drought. We will have floods. And there's no hardening up of that. There's no tree canopy throughout town to cut down on the heat. There's no ground cover being established. It's a disaster waiting to happen. And they ripped down all these trees over here and this swale over here all the way into town. So when the extreme downpours do happen, and they will, it's going to go right into town and start flooding the town and wiping out part of the town, not the whole town, of course. USA, Arizona, Florida, and especially Texas right now. So all the way from Arizona to Texas and Florida, you have a heat index of 110 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. You can look it up on Celsius. It's pretty darn high, and it's unsurvivable. It far exceeds the wet bulb temperature of survivability. California's having a heat wave as well. There are 300 plus wildfires going on in Canada right now. That's why we're seeing all this smoke. It's not going to abate. Won't stop until probably October, if then. China is preparing for the worst. They just came out of a heat and drought last year, going back into it again. The Himalayas are predicted to lose all their ice by, or 80% of their ice by the year 2100. It used to be 50% of their ice. Now they're up to 80%. So they're going to lose all the glaciers will be gone eventually. The significance of that is that I think it's 2.5 billion people rely on water from the glaciers in the Himalayas over in Asia. Africa is experiencing an increasing shortfall of food or food insecurity. And I'm going to move back because the wind's blowing again. Food insecurity, increasing shortfall of food. That's called starvation. 21% of Africa is encountering that. Vietnam, no rice exports at all. They're not going to export any rice. South and Central America, the longest and largest drought in its history. Migration, at our border here in the United States, we call ourselves Christian. Both parties do. Oh, we're a Christian nation. We're this and that. They've done even more draconian cutting off of immigration to this country. They originally were processing, I think it was 10,000 a day. Now they're down to 4,400 immigrants per day. This country cannot survive without the lifeblood of the immigrants coming in, let alone a Christian attitude of trying to save those. The reason why they're leaving is because Central and South America encountering massive droughts, unrest, things like that. And if you don't open your borders or encourage people that they, say they have a safe place, or keep a border that people can pass back and forth, go back to their home country if they want with their money after they pay taxes here, you'd have a more livable world. But we're not going to do that because we're a Christian nation. We turn away our backs to everyone. And who's to blame for that? Well, you had the Biden administration, but you had the Trump administration. Then you had the Obama administration. Then you had the Bush administration. It's a whole thing going on. It's not just one. The Ukrainian war with Russia has to stop. Okay, you cannot tackle climate change with two major countries at war with each other. Basically, it's a proxy war. But you have the European Union, you have the United States, you have Russia, and China by association is involved in it too. Israel and Palestine, you have the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. West Bank has 5.3 million Palestinians, 2 million on the Gaza Strip. One borders on Egypt, one borders on Jordan. The killing must end. You can't have a country working together if you're going to be trying to kill its population. And don't say each one's innocent, because you see the terrorism activity going on from the Palestinians, justifiably or not. They should stop trying to wipe out Israel. But I also saw snipers trying to shoot kids, or actually shooting kids from rooftops all the way into the Gaza Strip. So it's disgusting stuff going on. Kurds, for the Rohingya, and the Uyghurs, you have in Turkey, Myanmar, and China. Those ethnic groups need to be treated with respect. And you can't have a country working, trying to make itself better by trying to treat some of its citizens or people that live there worse. Got to come to a higher plane. So the United States, we're not immune to this by far. You have the poor and minorities, United States, they're climate change vulnerable. You have racism in the past, redlining. You also had education situation, water situation. Example of towns of that is Flint, Michigan, Detroit, Philadelphia, and where I used to live, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Terrible education system. The tax base was terrible. Meanwhile, across the river, it is very wealthy, and they got the best schools. Harrisburg had the worst schools. Native Americans, they have which we never talk about, water issue, territory issues, and jobs. They want to work, they want to have a good life, but we're keeping them from having that. Puerto Rico, they're United States citizens, they're under our protection. Hurricane Irma in 2017, they still haven't recovered from it. That was, 6 years ago? Throw a paper towel, remember that? Trump threw paper towels at them. Guam, you just had Hurricane Mawar, which is a cyclone, and I think the winds were up to 170 miles an hour. So my guess is Guam's been pretty well wiped out, and we don't treat them like U.S. citizens. We should. They are U.S. citizens. We should treat them the same as any other state. Leadership worldwide, it's non-existent. You have this climate change issue going on. There's no clear-cut plan as to what we're going to do. There's no plan at all. But they do have a plan to give $11 million a minute to the fossil fuel industry, up to $6 trillion a year in subsidies. So they're giving $11 million a minute, but they can't save anyone from poverty. You can't help the homelessness situation. You can't fix water problems. You can't do this, can't do that, because there's no money available. But we're spending all the money on military. Meanwhile, we're not thinking ahead. We're spending money on military and fossil fuels industry, and we're not thinking ahead as to make lives better for everyone. So there's no plan. There's no desire. The politicians and the parties here in this country, the two main parties, are counting on buffoonish, foolish, and ignorant public not to care, not to give a crap about anything. They count on them staying within their own political system. They join the two political systems, and that's what they feel they have to work with, rather than getting out, saying, I'm done with you, leave a message that way, then consider who's running for office at that point. But no, people are going to stay in their own political system because they feel that's where they need to be and keep the other party from winning. What's going to happen is you both got chokeholds on each other, which is killing the whole country and the whole world. So a mental revolution is needed. The you do you attitude needs to stop. Lifestyles of the rich and famous worldwide. People want a middle class, upper middle class lifestyle, and you can't. You got to have a survival lifestyle. So those are trivial thoughts. You need a higher plane, which is survival, fellow humans, looking at your fellow humans as actual human beings. Nature, we need to have trees planted, not cut trees. You cut down a tree, you plant 50 trees, because you cannot make up the time of an old growth tree and oxygen and carbon dioxide depletion. Technology will be not enough to save us at scale. Geoengineering, also, that's like the carbon sequester, pulling it out of the atmosphere. I was watching a thing on that and reading about it, and it's ridiculous. You can't do it at scale. It'd take billions and billions of these facilities to do this, to undo the damage we're doing. Technology is not enough to save us. Geoengineering, that's the last give up. That's when everyone's given up. Don't let Bill Gates do his plan to do that. It's insanity to do geoengineering, screening out the sun, in hopes that it'll cut down on the amount of sunlight coming to the earth, therefore cutting down on the solar gain and the heat gain. And that's insanity, because you need the sun to grow your food. So rather than deal with the carbon dioxide issue, they're doing a workaround that they don't have to deal with it. And that's nuts. So right now, carbon dioxide is at 424 parts per million. And last time, when it was 400 parts per million, this was during the Pliocene era, the oceans were 80 feet higher, and temperatures were 3 degrees Celsius warmer than they are now. So this is what's coming our way. We're at 424, not 400 parts per million that we were during the Pliocene era. So, things are going way out of control. There's the land actually heats up faster than the oceans do. So when they say the world is heated up 1.2 degrees Celsius, you can factor in another 3 times that for land. And that's why in Texas you're seeing temperatures in 110s, 115s, things like that. And the reason behind that is land heats up much more quicker than does water. So, as far as I know, we live on the earth. We don't live, for the most part, most of us don't live on the water. So if you don't take care of the land situation, meaning trees and everything else, and clear-headed thought, we're in for a world of hurt, going the wrong way. So what I recommend, if you want to learn about climate change more, is go down to my page here on Facebook, Jim McHenry. Also go to Environmental Coffee House, really good speakers on there, especially on Fridays. Jennifer and Sandy do an excellent job on Fridays. Paul Beckwith, Peter Carter, and these are all on YouTube. And look up climate change on YouTube. You can get dozens and hundreds of articles on climate change. So I'll catch you next week. That'll be number 400 or 241 on July 7th. Okay, see you later.